Begin the current Daf, Mesech Yevamos Daf Yud Zayin. Begin 13 lines down at the top of the Yomim, where we continue the discussion with the previous Daf, discussing the Talmudim. Again, it really came in parenthetical, because we were discussing on Daf Zayin this halacha of Tsaras Habas, which they heard that Ben Hyrcanus had said that it's permitted, which was like, we thought that would prove that they did like Bishamai, and he says, no, that's my brother Yonason, he's very contentious, but really there's three things that Chagai said, and one of them was Tsaras Habas, but another one was also regarding this, that you can kabel Gerim from the Karduin and the Talmudim, and that got into a whole discussion regarding how do we qualify these Talmudim. Are they that you could take game from them, or they actually are assimilated Jews, and therefore we actually treat them as mamzer, and that would be problematic, and that's why we got into that discussion. That's how Gemara concludes the first parak with that theme. Today's Daf. Some of the things discussed in today's Daf are, like we mentioned the previous Daf, and this is what we conclude this parak with regarding a non-Jew or a slave. Habal Bas Yisrael, that has a relationship with a Jewish woman. Havlad Mams, the child is going to be considered an illegitimate child. Aslad Bakal, which that relates to the concept of that certain people like Mamzerim are not allowed to marry a regular Jewish woman. The next parak begins the theme of Eishes Achav Shel Habar Lomei, which was number 15 of the Arayas from the first parak, which is if there was a brother just wasn't around at the same time that his brother who passed away without any children, that wife would be considered as an erva and would not be permitted in that halacha of Yibum. Maimer is a rabbinic kedushin for the mitzvah of Yibum. Although generally when a man gets married to a woman, there's two stages, that of kedushin and that of nisuin. And Maimer is, by Yibum there's only really nisuin, you just consummate the relationship with Bia, but the Rabbanan instituted that of Maimer, of a rabbinic kedushin. And then we have the machlekes of yesh zika and ein zika, regarding do we say that there is a bond. We were mentioning all along in this Masechta, but there is actual machlekes regarding, do we say that there's some type of a bond between the Yavam and the Yevama even before they even do anything, Mishamayim Kanafalav, that just right away there's that relationship or not. So we begin 13 lines down with the top of Daf Yizayim. We have this conclusion of that sugya that we had from the previous Daf regarding the relationship of certain individuals. It says the Gemara, Yosef Rav Yosef, Achayid Rav Kahana. Rav Yosef was sitting behind Rav Kahana. So you can imagine one person speaking with two people facing him, one behind the other. And Rav Kahana was sitting in front of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yosef coming, he was saying, Yasidin Yisrael, the Abdiyem Mitava, the Jewish people are ultimately going to make a Yom Tov, a celebration, a holiday, Kicharbi Tamud, when Tamud is going to be destroyed. Because as we said in the previous Daf, that was those who said that they're Mamzerim, and they're assimilated in the Jewish people, and they actually make it problematic, and we know in Eretz Yisrael, they have this concern pretty often that then those Jewish people get mixed into the other Jewish people, and then they validate them. So they can make a celebration when Talmud is destroyed. Says Gemara, but it was destroyed. Says Gemara, he Talmud habayim. It wasn't Talmud, that was Talmud, and therefore that's not a contradiction. Or actually, Rav Hashem says no, Hainu Talmud. It actually is the same place. But then the question is, you're saying when it was destroyed. So the Gemara explains, but it wasn't totally destroyed. Because it was doubled. When it was destroyed over here, then it was doubled and rebuilt somewhere else. Meaning, Char Mahagis was destroyed from this side, Mahagis, and then they rebuilt it on the other side. Char Mahagis was destroyed on the other side, Mahagis, and then they rebuilt it on this side. And therefore, though it was destroyed, it was not totally destroyed, and therefore they're ultimately going to make a celebration when it is ultimately destroyed.
Not the people, it's not a town that needs to be destroyed,
right.
It's the people.
Right. It sounds like that there was the people in the town, right, exactly, that were still around. So the Gemara brings the simile that Yosef Rav Amnuna came into Ula. Rav Amnuna was sitting in front of Ula for Kahava, and he was asking Bishmaita in the Sugya. So Ula said on Rav Amnuna regarding him, he says, Ma Gavra, wow, what a person, how great he is, with all his great questions. He says, Ilav de Harpanya Mase, if not for the fact that he comes from Harpanya, which they're not miyuchasim, they don't have a pure lineage. And he says, hey, it's a great mensch, but Lamai said, from Nazar Platz, and I'm saying, so Iksav, he was embarrassed that he was talking about his poor lineage. So Amalei Ula said to him, wait a second, Kesef Gulgalta Lehecha Yahavas, where do you pay your taxes to? Amalei says, from Nahara. He says, oh, Amalei, if that's the case, I'm from Nahara. That's where you're from. In other words, you're not from Harpanya, because that's where you pay your taxes to. So therefore, you're not from that inferior place of the yichus. Now, so the Gemara, my Harpanya, what's the inferiority of this place Harpanya that he thought he was from? Rabbi Zera says the word Harpanya is har. It's a mountain charcoal that everyone all the people that are psulim, that cannot find a woman, that's where that's where they turn to. So it's Harpanya. It's a mountain that they turn to. It means to say it's like it's all the inferior people that they can't find someone to that has an appropriate shift. They go there. Masnidaton in the Brisa they taught kol she'ein marker mishpachta v'shifta. Someone does not recognize his family and his tribe. It's a place, it's a melting pot of places where they don't really look into your who your family is and who your tribe is. You're not really connected. That's where they go with it. And again, that's obviously where a lot of psulim are going. Amar Rabbi says v'hiamuka, and it's deeper, meaning and it's bad for this thing more misha'ol, more than Gehenim. Because for those who go down to Gehenim, there's some type of rectification. Shalom, like it says the pasuk in Isaiah. Biyad sha'ol eftim. From the hand of Gehenim, I'm going to redeem them. Mimavas egolim, I'm going to liberate them from death. Now, vilu psul who? That's for Gehenim. But those invalidations of the people of Harpanya, less litikanta, there's no way of fixing even that. As the Gemara qualifies, psuli de Harpanya. What were these invalid people from Harpanya? From psuli de Mishan, meaning they were very close to Mishan, and they got mixed in with them. As the Gemara says in Kedushin Ayin Aleph, what was their psulim? But the people of Harpanya were because of they would live nearby to Mishan, and psuli de Mishan, why were they invalid? Mishum psuli de Tarmid, and psuli de Tarmid, why were they invalid? That we said on the previous daf. Mishum Avdei Shloimo, because the servants of Shloimo were very powerful, married these Jewish girls, and that created the psulim, which again then evolved into other places. Behind them, this is what people say: kavod rabba, the kavazuta, a large measurement and a small measurement, they're both distorted. In other words, all the psulim, migander va'azal l'shal, they all roll and they go down to sha'il, which from Rashi it sounds like Gehenim. Taisa says means bubble. And Mish'oil Tarmid. And in other words, Sha'oil is higher than Tarmid, and it rolls down from Sha'oil to Tarmid. And the reason is like we said before, we rational when Sha'oil literally means those who go to Gehenim, there's some type of takana for them. But for the psulim of the people in Tarmid, there's no purification from their psulim. And then Tarmid Lamation, and then Lamation Harpanya, and Harpanya again is that Harsha I call point, but all the psulim end up in Harpanya. Han L'Chamesha Nashim, shall return to the first parak of Yevamos. That, as we said, that these were the 15 women that Arayat that were put to start saying, which of course was only according to Beis Hill, who holds there's an exemption of the Tzalis. And with that, we continue with the next parak, the second parak Ketzad, which is the opening word, which actually qualifies, like we said, from the first parak, from the first Mishnah, the 15th erva we spoke about that's going to exclude the halacha of Yibum was Eishes Ach Shalei Barlamai, which was the wife of his brother who he was not around at the same time with. Even if it ultimately falls for Yibum, let's say from another brother, as we're going to explain right now, still it's going to preclude it as an erva, and it's even going to exempt it tzara from the mitzvah of Yibum. As the Mishnah explains, Ketzad, what is this case that we already said in the Daf Beis of Eishes Achav Shalei Barlamai? The wife of his brother who is not in his world, which means that he was not alive at the same time as him, that it's going to exempt the tzava. So the Mishnah describes the case. Shnei achim, two brothers, which we have over here as Reuben and Shimon. Umei sechem, as you always see, that means that the faint color means that he passed away. And then there's another brother, Levi, who is born after Reuben has passed away. Now, when Levi's born, he finds this wife of Reuben, Sarah, that is zakuk to him, which is forbidden to him. Why is she forbidden to him? Because this brother was Shalahoi by Lamev Levi. Levi was only born after Reuben already passed away. Their mother was pregnant, and she gave birth right after this Nebuch, this story that happened. Reuben passed away, and there was the Almana. No one did anything, and Levi's born. So that's the Eishes Hach Shalei by Lamev. So that's step number one. Then the Achakach Yibam Hasheni is Eishes Achav. The story continues. What happens is, so Shimon, a very noble brother, he goes and he does Yibam to the Almana of Reuben. He marries Sarah. Okay. Now he also had another wife. Shimon was married already. Baruch Hashem, he had a wife. He had Rivka. and now he has Sarah, because he did Yibum to the wife of Reuben. And then V'meis, then Shimon does without any children also. That's where the case of Eishlach B'Shalai B'Lomei applies regarding Poitus Tzorei. What happens is Harishayna, the first one, meaning referring to this Sarah as we have over here, who's the wife of Reuben, who already fell one time to Levi for Yibum when Reuben passed away. So she's Yaitza, she goes out and she's exempt when Shimon passed away. Mishum Eishes Achav Shalei B'Lomei. Not because of Shimon, he was alive with Shimon. But she was already an erva from the time that Reuben passed away. That when he encountered Sarah the first time when he was a little baby, when he was an infant, she was Eishes Achav Shalei B'Lomei. So she's an erva to him from the first Nefila. And Ashniya Mishum Tzavasa. Now the second one, there's two wives that Shimon has now that he died. The second one, Rivka, she's not an erva. She's not an Eishes Achav Shalei B'Lomei. But she's going to be exempt from Yibum because of a tzara, a co-wife of Sarah. That's the classic case of Eishes Achav Shalei B'Lomei that's Paitrin Tzaraseyan Menachalitzim in the Yibum. Now, but let's say another case. Let's say Asaba. Let's say this one Shimon, who died, the second one. He actually had only done by this Sarah a maimer, which is a rabbinic kedushin. He didn't get a chance to go ahead and actually do Yibum to her, to fully marry her. And guess what happens? V'meis. And Shimon passed away. So here the halach is different. Here Shniya, the second one, meaning this Rivka, the second wife of Shimon, the tzara, the co-wife, the halach is going to be not like we said in the previous case that she's going to be part of an achalitzim the Yibum like a tzara of an erev of Eishlach Shalei B'Lomei. No, here the halach is going to be that she's chayletzes. She has to have chalitza from this lady. She's not exempt because of tzara's elf, because she's not literally a tzara midairaisa of Sarah. Because Shimon never married, never did yibum to this Sarah. But Levi cannot do yibum with her. Because ultimately Shimon did a maimer, which does partially acquire Sarah as a wife, at least rabbinically, and therefore rabbinically, Rivka is a tzara of an erva of Eishes Achav Shalei B'Lomei, and hence that precludes yibum, but still mandates chalitza. That's like what we had mentioned. Although generally kosher ino ilim ino chalitza, yibum and chalitza are very much connected. But when we have these rabbinic problems, so it cannot preclude me from the chiv daraisa of yibum. But rabbinically, I can't let you do yibum either. So that's why we have that classic halacha of chalatzes v'lemis avemes. You can do chalitza, you're not going to do yibum. Now, the Gemara, just as a more grammatical discussion, the Gemara says, Amar of Nachman, it says, Mamitani Rishayna, according to, let's say, the girsa we have in our Gemara, in our Mishnah, that it calls the wife of Reuven, who fell in front of Levi 2 times, they call her, quote-unquote, Rishayna. She's the first one, Limishtabish, that's not an error. And Mamitani Shniya Limishtabish, the one that calls the wife of Reuven, that falls from 2 times, the second one is also not a mistake. What does that mean? So the Gemara explains. Man the one that learns at the Tintam of Beis Rishayna Limishtabish, it's not a mistake, because my Rishayna, what are we calling her the first one? It means Rishayna Linafila. She's the first one that fell to him, meaning she fell the first time to Yibum before this Nafila, already once before when Reuben passed away. Now that Shimon is passing away and she's falling with Rivka, that's her second time. So she was really the first one that fell when Reuben passed away, and now Rivka is having only her first time when it's by her second time. So she's called the Rishayna because she was the first one that had the Nefila by the first time from Reuben. That's if the Giris is Rishayna. And even the one that calls her the second one is also not a mistake, because my Shni, what does it mean the second one? It means Shni L'Nisuin. It means the second one to the marriage of Shimon. Because Shimon was already married to Rivka, and then when his brother Reuben never without any children, Shimon says, you know what, I'm going to do Yibum to Sarah. Now she's wife number 2, so we could call her this Shniyat as the second one. But the Gemara doesn't like it. The Gemara says, Mila Eskin, aren't we talking about the Yavam V'achakach Kanas? In other words, can you not explain the halach of our Mishnah, even if, let's say, Shimon was a bacher, Shimon wasn't married, and Reuben, his brother, died, got married before him, and he goes and he does Yibum, and after he does Yibum, then he married Rivka, where then this woman is not the second one, she was the first one. Why are you telling me you could have the gears of Shnia because she's the second wife? Who said? She can be wife number one, and then the tzava is married afterwards, and then you still have the same halacha. Why are you calling her the second one? The Gemara says you're right. Ella, it's not Shnia Linisuin. My Shnia, what would it mean? The second one means Shnia Binisuin. It's the second time in marriage, because once she had to her original husband, and once she had to the Yavam. So we would call her the second one because it's her second time getting married in this family. That's what we call her the second one. So either girsa is okay. Which tries to discuss why here we don't ask how come this one doesn't hold like that one as we do other places in Shas. But the Gemara goes back now to the general concept. This erva, Eishes Achav Shlei Lamai, the wife of the brother that was not around at the same time in the world, but where does it even say this? That there's such an isser of an erva of Eishes Achav Shlei Lamai. Which tries to point out an interesting question. He says, the Gemara elsewhere says that the Torah's ways are sweet and pleasant. What type, and therefore we say that you cannot, once you're exempt, you cannot be subsequently obligated to then do Yibum. So why over here would we say that, why do you need a pasuk? Why don't you say that because the moment she became an almana, then there was no brother around, so obviously you're not going to require her to then subsequently be obligated if you already pater the moment of the death. So Taisa says the case would be talking about where the mother-in-law was pregnant. That's darchi noyim, to wait to see if she's going to give birth to a boy, and then she'd be zakuk. But you're right, if it would be total exemption, and there was no yavam, and then suddenly your yavam pops up 5 years later, say, it's not a derech think that I should be exempt, and then have to go back and address that. So that's what the Gemara is asking. Where do we find the Torah, this erev of Eishes Achshe B'Lam? So maybe the Rabbi says, because Amakar, the Pasuk says in Devar, Pasuk says, when brothers are going to be living together and one of them dies and he doesn't have a son, etc., etc. What do you see from there? That they were dwelling together, that they were there at the same time. That excludes the wife of the brother was not there at the same time, that he's not going to have the mitzvah of Yibam, and hence it becomes like an error because mitzvah. Now the word Yachtav, the Gemara Darshans, what does the word Yachtav together mean? It means Miyuchadim Benachla, means to say that they were designated in inheritance, meaning that they're fit to inherit one to the other, which teaches us that the mitzvah Yibam only applies to paternal brothers and not to maternal brothers. If they have the same mother but not the same father, that wouldn't apply because Yerusha is only from the father, is patrilineal in that way, is Yerusha, and therefore it does not apply to matrilineal. Now, another source for the first halacha of how do we know that it applies to paternal brothers. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Amir says, Ach min ha'av. How do we know that it's paternal brothers? Because Yalef Ach v'Ach min Yaakov. We learn out, it says in the Pasuk, Yish v'Achim, which we just quoted regarding the halach of Yibum. And it says in the Pasuk, B'Reisha Shneim Asher Achim b'nei Avinu, we're 12 brothers, the sons of our fathers. Not lahalam min ha'av v'lim min. Just like over there, the sons of Yaakov, they didn't all have, there was 4 mothers, there's the 4 Mohis. They only had the same father, not the same mother, and they're calling them Achim. Avkan min ha'av v'lim min. So over here, when it talks about Kish Achim, the mitzvah of Yibum is talking about paternal, not maternal brothers. Says the Gemara, why are you learning out from over there? There's another pasuk that says Ervas Eishes Achicha. When it talks about the actual Erva of Eishes Ach, it says the intimacy of your brother's wife, which the Gemara tells us later on that's even if it's a maternal brother, not a paternal brother, even if just share the same mother, not the same father. So there it says the word Ach, and it's actually talking about Eishes Ach. So why don't you learn that over here by the brother's wife, where it also says Ach, that it would mean even just maternal brother, not paternal brother. Says the Gemara, no, dan achim me achim. We expound the word achim from the word achim, v'dan achim me achicha. It's not the same exact word over there. There it's achicha, and here these two psukim are the same word achim, brothers. So says the Gemara, what's the big difference? Achim, achicha, hatan be'bishma. I'll prove to you that you don't even have to have even the same word, as long as it means the same idea. Because this is mentioned many times in Shas, that it's taught in Shiva, in the Brayso of Rabbi Shmuel. It says b'shava kain nevaha kain. Actually, we're going to have these parashas soon, Tazrim Mitzayro, when it talks about the halachas of tzaras. So when the tzaras in the house, the kain has to come back, he has to check it out. So one pasuk says b'sheva kain, the kain will come back. One pasuk says b'uva kain, the kain will come. So the Brayso of Rabbi Shmuel teaches the Dui Shiva Dui Bia. The coming back and the coming is the same thing. Although the psukim not really the same exact, but since they're both talking about the kain coming, So we have Gzeira Shava, which teaches just like over there, you have to take away the stones, and you have to chisel away from the plaster, and you have to plaster it over again, etc. So they both have the same halacha b'shav and uva. So it's not even the same word, but as long as it means the same idea, you'll make a Gzeira Shava. So why you tell me I'm not going to make a Gzeira Shava achen from achicha, because the suffix is different. It's the same word, the same idea. Even b'shav uva, which are totally different words, you tell me make a Gzeira Shava for sure achen achicha. So the Gemara says yes. When would we make a Gzeira Shava of the word b'shav to the word uva? When there's nothing else that it's similar to, then we make such a Gzeira Shava. But if there's something that's more similar, you learn from something that which is more similar, then we learn achem from achem and achem from achicha. And just like achem by bnei Yaakov, it means to say that we only have the same father, not the same mother. So to the mitzvah of Yibum is going to be the same father, not the same mother. But the Gemara still has another question that says, wait a second. Why don't you learn now where it says by light with Avraham, that it says the word brother there. The Siv, it says in Bereshis that that Avraham was telling Light that it's not good for us to fight because we are men that are brothers. Now that says the same word achim, not achich, not other achinu or achiv, and therefore the halach of Yibum should apply to the wife of your father's brother, to the uncle, because Light was the nephew of Avraham, and they're calling them achim. And the mitzvah by Yibum says, Ki yishur achem yachtav. So why don't you say the mitzvah of Yibum is for an uncle and a nephew? Says the Gemara, no, Mistab, it's logical from the Yaakov Havlamelch that we're going to learn it from the sons of Yaakov. Why? From the mufne. Because there the word achem is superfluous. Why? But the Havlamelch, from the fact that it should have said that Shneim Aser Avadecha B'nei Avinu, that there's 12 of these servants, of your servants that are the sons of our father. So, and uksivachem, what is the gain by saying brothers? Obviously, it's extra to say, to compare it to the mitzvah of Yibum. But now the Gemara says, so ultimately, we learned out from two psukim, from Yachtav, which means to say, as we said, together where they have inheritance together, which tells us that's only by the brothers that are the same from the same father, because Yerusha goes from the father. And you also needed the pasuk Achim, which is Gzeira Shava with the sons of Yaakov, that are also only paternal brothers, not maternal. Why do we need both? So the Gemara explains. Because Achim and Achim had the Torah only written brothers, that Gzeira Shava. So I would have thought you could still, the word Achim is also by light, which is a nephew and an uncle, and not paternal brothers. And Chitim, we're going to say, as we had rejected, say no, the word there is not extra, it's only extra by Bnei Yaakov, and therefore we're going to learn it from the sons of Yaakov. It's not true. The truth is, it actually is extra by light too. Why? Should have said that we are friends. Not brothers. Why does it say Avram and Light are brothers? Oh, obviously I can infer from there that it's an extra word to make a Gzeira Shava to the mitzvah of Yibum. Therefore, you have to write the word Yachtav together, which that they're designated in inheritance, where they split one inheritance to the contrast of Light, where it's not really one inheritance, although technically they could inherit their grandfather together, but it's not one nachla, and therefore that's why you need a Yachtav. Because of the Yachtav, had we only had the pasuk of Yachtav, I would have said, maybe that's when it's saying Yachtav means it's miyuchad, that's designated, the miyachti ba'abo be'ima. Maybe then you have to have, I would have thought, that the brothers to do the mitzvah have to have the same father and the same mother. So therefore, we needed to have Achim, which Achim, the sons of Yaakov, did not have the same mother. They only had the same father, and then we needed Achim to tell you that it's only for paternal brothers and only to be maternal brothers too. But the Gemara asks, it says, wait a second, that last tzricha, I don't understand. But Mehechatesa, which is from where you're going to come, that you're going to tell me, that you would have thought to say, if I only had Yachtav, that you need to be designated to have the same father and the same mother, to have the mitzvah of Yibum. What are you talking about? Yibum and Nachal Tal Rachmana. We know that the mitzvah of Yibum is dependent on inheritance. Why? Because there's a pasuk in Devarim Chafei that says that Yakum Hashem Achel HaMes, the one who does Yibum will take over the role of his dead brother. Which the Gemara later on, the Chavdal Malach tells us. What does it mean Hashem Achiv? That takes over his brother's Nachla, where he actually inherits this Miyabim, all the assets of the one who died, and the other brothers don't divide it with him. So you see that essentially what Yibum is doing is taking over the financial state of the mess, and part of that is the acquisition of the wife. It's a kinyan of Nachla. So So Benachem and Av eliminate here. We know inheritance has nothing to do with maternal brothers, only paternal. So why, you tell me, if I only had Yachtav, I would have thought to say that you have to be paternal and maternal brothers. No, therefore I need to have Achim to preclude from that. Why would I have thought to say that when they know that the whole mitzvah of Yibam is only Ba'av and not Ba'ib? So Yimah Isra no is necessary. Why? So when you would have thought to say, Chidushu, nice, it's a huge Chidush. Here's someone who's forbidden. People have the fantasy, say, oh, if only this would be permitted to me. He had an erva in that Torah, an Eishes Ach. And she becomes permitted, it actually becomes a mitzvah to marry what was an erva. So therefore, I would say, Ima has to be a real full-fledged, true blood brother that's both paternal and maternal. You have to say that no, it's enough, which is being paternal, but from the word Yachtav itself, I would not have known that. I would have thought maybe it has to be Achim and the Avim, Avim and the Aim, and therefore I needed to have that of Achim to teach you that it's enough to have only paternal brothers. Now here is where we start a sugya that I recall as a bacher doing in a whole winter's man, like a few lines, a few pages of Gemara, the sugya of Zika. Sugya of Zika is one of the more famous sugyas in the Mesechta Yevamos regarding a bond that there is between the Yavam and the Yavama before doing anything, just from when the death of his brother. That's the concept known as Zika, and that's our Gemara now discusses that concept. Amar Buna, Amar Rab. Shemeres Yavam Shemesa. So if we know there's the woman who is the Yavama, so to speak, she's called Shemeres Yavam. She's a lady in waiting for Yibum. She's Shemeres, which means waiting. The word Shomer doesn't mean only safeguard, it means waiting. She's waiting for Yavam. And Shemesa, if she passes away, no one ended up, this woman didn't get Yibum, didn't get Chalitza, she was Shemeres Yavam. You can think of it practically, Chas Shem Lo Yeleinu, there's an accident. And the husband died, it was a young couple, he died without any children. So she's a Shemeres Yavam. Now she was in critical condition too also. She didn't die right away, she was Shemeres Yavam. And then she died. Mutta be'ima. Says the first opinion of the Gemara of Huna in the name of Rav. This Yavam, the brother of the one who died, he's permitted to marry the mother, his brother's mother-in-law. The Shemeres Yavam's mother, he's permitted to marry. What's the chiddush? Why would you think not? Says the Gemara, Amak Sava. Obviously, we see that Rav Huna holds that ein zika. There's no halacha of a zika, of a bond. Why? What does that mean? So Rashi explains. The zika of his Yevama, who died. Now, what's important to keep in mind is that nothing was done with the zika. There was no yibum to consummate it. There was no chalitza to neutralize it. There was the zika bond, which essentially the zika is like a marriage. So here it is. He's saying that when this woman dies, he's permitted to marry her mother. So obviously, that means to say you're telling me that zika is not making her like she was your fiancée. It's not like you were engaged with her. Because if you were engaged to her, guess what? When she dies, you're not allowed to marry her mother. Because it's chamaisa. It's his mother-in-law. You can't marry the Shemeres Yavam's mother if she dies. If you did chalitza, it neutralized it. So she was never your wife. If you do yibum, she becomes your wife. What happens if you didn't do anything? You just had zika or not. So he's saying, Shemeres Yavam Shemesa, you want to be ma. Obviously, because he holds ain't zika. You don't hold, there's no zika bond. So nothing happens.
Maybe there was zika and it goes away, but the mix is how.
Right, so that's, Taisa discussed that. That's what I was bavaring and saying that, how does it go away? Well, what does that mean? In other words, when the wife dies, maybe that goes away. There's no more relationship anymore. Now you should be able to marry her mother. No, you say once a wife, always a wife. And you're forbidden in her mother.
But she wasn't his wife.
Right, but there was zika. Where did that go away? Does death take away relationships? Till death do us part? Right? Death doesn't take away relationships. You're forbidden to your wife's mother forever.
But if she's not in the world, why not?
Because the wife's also not in the world anymore. Right? But the relation doesn't get neutralized. Let's make believe that when someone passes away, they're still there in spirit. It's like you're still married to them,
Well,
even when they're dead. Some degree.
It's a connection, but not of a marriage. It's just a sub connection, but not of a
I'm
marriage.
saying she wants to lumdus, but I'm saying that's what I'm saying. That's
In reality, she cannot marry the wall because she has to get either Yevamos or Chalitza. She cannot marry anybody.
right.
She has some connection. It's not a longest, it's a reality.
I'm saying, but that connection is
That
like
connection,
it would
is
be
is it like a marriage or not?
Right.
But
right.
it's obviously there is some connection. She cannot marry anyone.
Yeah, but the question is exactly that's what zika means. That's what exactly. That's an isser, and that's like a reality. The concept of yesh zika is saying that we have a connection already. That's what marriage is. It's a connection.
It is a connection. She cannot marry anyone.
That doesn't necessarily mean that there's a connection. If she can't marry someone else, doesn't mean necessarily you have a connection.
That means she's
No,
bound. It's not something.
No. She just can't marry anyone else. She has an issa, just not marry anyone else. Doesn't mean we have a connection. Me and you have nothing to do with each other.
It's like when you're in contract to buy a house, you committed to this person, but you didn't do anything yet.
Right. We might not have any relationship. You're just forbidden to marry. We just can't negotiate with anyone else right now. But me and you don't have a relationship. Again, this is why I was on this for 6 months. Now you know why, right? But I'm saying this is just the basic concept about that we're saying ain't zika.
She could negotiate with the other brother.
So that we'll get to that regarding when there's more than one brother. But let's keep it simple for a second. That each one then she has a zika with. Oh, so she was married to them all, so to speak, right? But therefore then each one would be forbidden to the mother-in-law because she was married to them
Yeah,
all.
so clearly it's not like the suit.
Right.
I think you proved the point.
Right. It's not the same thing, but there is something here.
It's a possibility.
Right. Look. We're in the mandama in zika. We'll see what the mandama yesh zika says. So the Gemara wonders says, why is he saying this? Why is he saying a whole halacha zika? Just stop it. There's a Mishnah later on in Hachelis in Memalav Menal that discusses this halacha. The Mishnah there discusses we're talking about Amaram over here. There's a Mishnah. Memalav says there's Sheneres Yavam that the brother of the Yavam goes and marries and gets engaged to the sister of the Yavam. So obviously these families like each other, but one brother had been married to a woman. The sister, this younger brother, always looking at the sister. He's like, oh, I want to get into that family too. He wanted to marry the sister. Now, her husband died. One of the brothers died without any children. Now, the brother, he's like, oh man, I'm stuck now with the Yevama, Shemeres Yavam. He quickly jumps and he gets engaged to the sister of the Yavam. And he's going to leave the Yibum for his brother. So the name of Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, they said, now wait, they tell the one who did Kedushin to the sister of the Yevama, wait, don't do Nisuin yet, because she's a Chayzikukasa. She's the sister of the one that you have a Zika bond with, and since it's after that you already had the bond with the sister, that you went and you did Kedushin, you have to wait until the Yevama has Yibum to your brother, which that will remove the Zika, that's going to neutralize, that's the difference between death and Yibum Chalitza. When the brother is going to do Yibum, that will neutralize the Zika, then you don't have any more relationship with her. And Shmuel says Allah is like a Yehuda. So this is how Rashi says it. It says differently, that from the fact that Shmuel says halacha is like a Yehuda, then the inference is that those who disagree, meaning that concept is based on yesh zika. If there's zika, then there's a chesed kukasei. Then hey, don't marry her yet. This that you're engaged to her because you can't marry her. She's a chesed kukasei. It's like an erva to you, at least rabbinically or whatever, however you define the zika. So from the fact that Shmuel has to say halacha is like a Yehuda, the inference is that those who disagree and hold that no, there's no zika to the brothers to make him forbidden on her relatives, and that he actually would be allowed to marry the chesed kukasei. Who cares a chesed? What a chesed kukasei? She maybe can't not marry a foreign man. But me, as one of the brothers, I go marry her sister. Why not? I have nothing to do with her. That's the machlekes tanoim that Rashi is showing in the Mishnah Chaylet regarding when one of the brothers gets engaged to the sister of the Shemeres Yavam. Do we stop him or not? If we stop him, you see yes zika. If we don't stop him, there's ain't zika. So the Gemara is asking Rabbi, why you tell me your own shtickle Torah? Shemeres Yavam Shemeisa Mutabeima. Just tell me that the halacha is like the one who holds ain't zika, and then I'll know all the cases that we like saying klolim anyway. Why are you picking me a prat as if it's your own halacha? Just say like the halacha is like manama of ein zika. So the Gemara says no.
The focus of there is if someone married,
Someone got engaged to the sister of the Shemer Yavam.
the Shemer
No, one of the brothers died, but there's the woman is waiting.
So the Shemer Yavam is still alive.
Yeah.
So it's not the same. It's not the same
No.
situation as here.
Right, but still you see Ein Zika over there. You see that according to the one who says that he can go ahead and marry the sister. You obviously see we're not concerned for the Achaysu Gukasei. What have to do with the Shemer Yavam? This is maybe a mitzvah or whatever. But what does that have to do with me? I can marry the sister. I can marry whoever I want.
It's not alive anymore.
What? No, I'm saying in the case over there, if I'm not stopping him from marrying the sister, obviously Ein Zika. So Ein Zika, so yeah, it's a different case, but it's still the same concept, same principle.
Isn't he also a Yovam until there's...
Yeah, but what sheikhs? So I'm a Yevamot, there's no Zika.
You can marry a few wives.
There's no Zika. No, the sister, so fine, so who cares? I'll marry the sister. Who cares? I don't have any connection with her. I'm not a chayzuk ukase. It's not a chayzuk ukase. This whole idea that we always say there's no chayzuk ukase, but there's no Zika. There's no isser for me to marry the sister. Why would you stop me? Because you're not stopping me because ain't Zika. So then I would know this halacha too. Why do you have to tell me your own halacha? So the Gemara says obviously there are differences, and that's what the Gemara is going to get to now. He only said halacha is like the one who says ain't Zika. So I would have thought to say that Hanamili, when did we say that we don't consider Zika to make it forbidden on the relatives? That's betray. That's when there's two brothers who are falling in front of two, when there's falling in front of two Yevamot, that's the case over there in Achelis and Daf Mem is Machlekes Yehuda and the Rabbanan, that since you don't know and whom is this woman falling to, so that's not considered significant to make him forbidden on the relatives, because like someone brought up before, when you have two brothers, so not necessarily going to be me, it could be my brother. So maybe over there we say Ein Zika because what do you want from me? Right? Let my brother do Yibam. But Abu Lachad, when there's only one Yavam, you're the only guy. You're the last man standing. It's got to be you. Maybe I would say yes Zika. Of course it's a bond. And which is similar to having been married to her. And then therefore even that man would agree that you'd be forbidden in the mother. Because of course there's Zika. When there's two brothers, I can't say Zika. I can't say she's married to the seven of you. She's not married to the 7 years. Which is like that case in Avinal. But when there's one brother, and there's a mother-in-law, her mother, I said, of course you can be forbidden in the mother, because you were the man. You were the man, of course there was a bond to you. I would say yes, Ziku by one brother. Therefore I have to tell you that no, even when there's only one brother, that then the halach is going to be that you can be permitted in the mother. Because ain't Zika, even by one brother. So the Gemara says, but why don't you say that? Why don't you say halacha kedibri oimer? Because again, you're amay wrong. If there's a Tanoic opinion that says such a thing, then you should say it. Halacha kedibri oimer. You should say halacha is like the one who says ain't Zika fil bachad. That there's no Zika even by one brother. Now who is that Tana? So Rashi says it's Rabbi Kiva in Daf Chav Testament base. That Rabbi Kiva says that when there's a Shemeres Yavam, a woman who's waiting for Yibum, her Yavam cannot nullify her vows. Not whether there's one brother or not whether there's two brothers. In other words, it doesn't make a difference if she falls into one Yavam or two Yavam. We don't call the Yavam as Isha, her husband. A husband, it could go ahead and nullify a woman's vows. A Yavam is not called her husband. So you see, Rabbi Kiva holds, even when there's one Yavam, he's not considered her husband. So just say it's like that Tana. Again, don't make up your own halachas if you can say it's a Tana.
The Amazon says yes, Zika would hold that giving nation. It's not a husband yet, it's just a Yovam.
No, maybe yeah, we'll see that.
That's already enough to be.
I'm saying, why not? Why not? What?
It says in Isha is Baal. He's not a Baal yet.
Oh, even if you're engaged together with the father, yeah, there is. We'll see that. Yeah, that could be considered that he is her husband. So the Gemara says no. Had we said this, I would have said I feel the mechaya. So here I would have been confused the other way around. I would have said that even when the Yevama is alive, I'm permitted to marry her mother before Chalitza. If I marry her mother, obviously then the Yevama is going to go to Shuk, because then she's Bas Ishtar. Then she's his wife's daughter, which obviously that's an erva, and then she's not going to have any mitzvah yibum. And then I would have thought to say, if I'm going to tell you ain't Zika avil b'chad, I would have said, okay, then even when she's alive, I could marry the mother. That's what I'm telling you, no, la'achamisa in only after, that was why we picked that case for everyone though. After the Shemen Zevim passed away, then you could go ahead and marry the mother, which is all, but Mechaim Lo, but if when the woman herself, the Shemen Zevim is still alive, then you cannot marry the mother. Why not? Why can't you marry the mother? Ain't Zika. What's the problem? Yeah, full of ain't Zika. No, for a different concept. Because one is forbidden to go ahead and nullify the mitzvah of Yibum. And if you're going to marry the mother when the Yevama is still alive, you went and you were actively mevatel the mitzvah from Yibum Chalitza. So that's why you wouldn't be able to do that. Now the Gemara.
Is he allowed to marry the mother when her husband's still alive? Before she became a Yevama?
Yeah, because there's no Zika.
There was an affliction.
You want to.
If you died from before, if the Zika happens when he died, if it falls when he dies or from the marriage.
Right. Yeah, you want to know why wouldn't that be considered as being mevatel mitzvah yadmin? Yeah, it's a good question, but it's different because one is when there is actual chalois already, there is already took effect, and you're actively nullifying it versus here you're preempting it and you're marrying, because then you would say that every brother should not be able to marry his brother's daughter because when he's going to die without any children, it's nullifying the yibum of the tzava because of tzava's erva. I mean, we don't say that. We only say that you're not be mevatel a mitzvah of yibum when it's already here and clear and present, not when it could be something that might happen in 5 or 10 years from now, if and when he dies without any children. That wouldn't be a problem about being mevatel mitzvahs Yevamot. So the Gemara asks a question. Tanan. Again, it's a lot of details, but again, it's all building up to this point about how to qualify this mitzvah of zikr or not. Tanan. We learn in the Mishnah later on of Mem Tezim and Aleph. Yevim Shemesa. If a Yevama dies, so the Mishnah says Mut B'Chaysa, you're allowed to marry the sister of the Shemeras Yavam, because as Rashi points out, even if a wife dies, you're permitted to her sister. But the problem is the diuk. Something about chayse in. If the Shemeras Yavam dies, you're permitted to marry her sister. But it sounds like the imaloi, but the mother not, because that's exactly not locha by a wife. That you're forbidden even after the death of the wife in the mother. So it sounds like Yevama also be forbidden. Now that contradicts Rav Huna Rav, which says Ein Zika that you're permitted the mother. Here it sounds like it would be forbidden the mother. Says no, it's not true. The truth is, even the mother would be permitted after the Shemeras Yavam's death. But since it was contrasting Yevama with Isha, and it was telling you Ishtar Shemesa, if his wife died, Muta B'Chaysa is permitted the sister, which yes, by the wife is B'Chaysa in Avimaloi, is only the sister, but the mother not. The Habiloi Surah Deraisa, that's a biblical Isser, which the Torah prohibits the mother-in-law, and the Torah does not differentiate whether the wife is alive or after she's dead, like it does differentiate by Chaysisha, which is only when she's alive. Allah B'Chayah. So Tanam Sefer says therefore also when there's talking about the Yevama, it also says about the B'Chaysa, but it's not really exacting because it would also be permitted even with the mother. It's just keeping that flow of the symmetry of when it was talking about the wife, so kept it by the Yevama. Again, this was all Rav Huna Rav. However, Rav Yehuda, he disagrees with the principle. He says, Shemeras Yavam Shemesa says, if the lady in waiting for Yibum, the Amana dies, Asa Be'imai says you're forbidden to marry the mother. Says the Ma'amak Sav, obviously he holds, Yeshika, that there is a bond. It's like you were married to her, and then even when she passed away, you're still forbidden in the mother, as if it's your mother-in-law. So says the Gemara, why didn't you just say that Allah is like the one that says Yeshika, which is that the bond of the Yibum is like as if you were married to her, and therefore that prohibits the mother on the Yavim because it's like his mother-in-law. Says the Gemara that no, had we said Yeshika, I would have said Hanamila B'chad. That's only by one Yavim. One Yavim, you're very much connected. I'll betray, but when there's two brothers, ain't Zika, I would say that there's no Zika because how could I say that she's married to she's married to the whole family? Like, when you join the family and say you married us all, it's like, how can you say that? Says the Gemara, but you can't say that. That's why he had to say this. The actual machlekes Yibin Rabbanan we quoted before is betrayed pligi. The Mishnah of Mem Aleph is talking about when they tell the brother who was engaged to the sister of the Yevama, they say, hey, don't marry her, wait till your brother does Yibum to her, and then you'll be able to marry her. So obviously, it's talking about two brothers. So if you would say yes Zika, we would know by default it's even Zika when there's two brothers. So why you tell me your case? Because you would have thought it's only by one, not by two. It's not true. By saying by default yes Zika, we know it means with even two brothers, because that's the case they're disagreeing about. So the Gemara says, Ella, rather, no. The answer is, I Amar Hachi, had we only said yes, Zika, as you can tell by your Chesed and Aleph, I would have said that, what is Zika a problem for? Like that case over there, when the Yevama is alive. And he got engaged to the sister, saying, oh, hey, you have Zika with her. You know, you have a connection over here. But that's Mechayim. I would have thought after she's dead, Zika. Then there's no more Zika anymore, like someone had said. Like, what do you mean? It disappears the moment she dies, that you wouldn't have a problem and you would be permitted to marry the mother. Kamash Malan, that's what teaching, and this is the answer really to that question you were asking. The Zika Bechti Leipak. The bond with nothing, it cannot be neutralized, it cannot be removed. Like we said, when a wife dies, it doesn't remove that connection. You have to neutralize it with doing yibum or chalitza, and then it removes the zika, and then you won't be prohibited in the mother. But if she just dies, nothing was done to that zika, she's considered like a wife, and therefore, it's even going to be la'achamisa to say that the mother is going to be prohibited. Thank you to any time.